So you've got a bass. Now what are you going to do? Well, you got to figure out a way to hold it. So we have a strap here, and it's a funny thing. Are you going to practice and learn in a seated position or a standing position? The way that I carry my bass, fortunately, it's about the same. So when I stand up, the bass is physically relative to my hands in the same place it is when I'm sitting down. You see, basses are designed with this little cutout curve here to sit nicely on your knee, especially this personally designed Stu Hamm Warwick signature bass, by the way. But then again, you notice that some guys that play like metal wear their basses really low. So again, that's a choice for you. If you're more comfortable practicing standing up, then that's the way you should do it, because that's the way you're going to be holding the bass. But I would recommend sort of having it around here where you're going to feel comfortable with it. Try to find a bass that's well balanced. Some basses have really heavy necks, and you can see they don't really balance. We call them neck divers. And the basses that I choose to play and design are like nicely well balanced, not too heavy. Ergonomic is the phrase we'd use. So a strap helps keep it in place and helps it make it more unified than if you're practicing in this position and then you go to stand up and you're wearing your bass very low. It's going to be sort of a different kind of beast. But so here you are. You're holding your bass. You've got it on there. You're feeling comfortable. Now, with your left hand, we're going to be using our left hand to fret the notes. And the other thing we're going to be using our left hand for is to keep the other notes quiet when we're playing in open strings. And as a bass player, you're going to be playing a lot of open E's, a lot of open A's. And you can see it's sort of hard to stop those other notes from ringing. So one thing we're going to work on, and you're going to have to learn how to do, is sort of mute the strings you're not playing with your left hand by just sort of laying your fingers on the strings but not pressing them down. And then obviously with our left hand, we're going to be fretting notes. We'll be going through this more later. But the basic technique that I like to think of is that when you're fretting a note, you really want to play it with your fingertips. You want to arch your fingers, kind of like a piano player, because you get a much better sound when you're using your fingertips to press straight down on the string, right? And I always think of it as trying to squeeze your finger and your thumb together, right? The back of the neck, you can see I have my thumb on the back of the neck like this, and I'm squeezing them together and really arching them. If you have flat fingers like that, your thumb's going to come over the neck, and it's not going to get as good a sound, and you're not going to be as agile and able to move your left hand around the fretboard. And also, what you have to be careful for is sometimes people, by their hand, will move the note sharp if you're coming at the string from an angle, right? Which is another case for, again, curving your fingers, right, this first joint, squeezing your finger and thumb together, and coming right down on the notes. May be difficult at first, but like everything else with practice, you'll get it. And you'll know it when it sounds good. And again, I can't emphasize enough that it's music and it's supposed to sound good. So your number one job is to get a good sound, big round tone out of your bass. Now with our right hand, which we're going to be using, again, if you're using a pick, it's a little different thing. But with our right hand, we wanted to leave it loose. There is some discussion about the angle of the wrist. And it is true, you know, I've done a lot of research in the physical aspects of playing bass. There is actually a whole theory of playing bass called the floating thumb, where you never curve your wrist, where you don't anchor your hand to anything, and you move your hand like this. Because if you curve your wrist like this, it sort of cuts off the flow, and that can lead to damage, right? It's a pretty kind of esoteric-based concept to think about, but it is something to think about. Me, I have a little bit of curve in my hand. But again, the point, like any learning, is that you should take input from this course, from other courses that you take, and try some different things out and find out what's comfortable and what works for you that gives you a good sound in the bass. And the other main thing I can tell you is that if you're playing and something hurts, or you're experiencing pain, just to stop, because that means you're doing something wrong. And you've got to correct those bad practice and physical techniques and habits early so that you can have a long, pain-free playing career. So if you're playing and your hand starts to hurt, it means you're pressing too hard, or your hand starts to hurt over here, it means you're practicing too much. Especially if you're a beginner, you just can't learn this stuff in one day. So don't try to push it. If you reach that limit where you're starting to feel some pain, you got to stop, shake it out, and come back when you're prepared and relaxed and ready to keep playing. So, well-balanced bass, left hand curved, arched, like you're holding a tennis ball, squeezing our finger and thumb together here to fret the notes. Right hand over here, nice and loose. And now we're ready to learn how to play the bass.